We want the citizens of Davis County to know of our resolve to defend the Constitution, protect their rights, and still promote safety and welfare.
All right, listening to the Davis County Sheriff there and going in depth today on Davis County's new decision to issue a Second Amendment policy. In yesterday's County Commission meeting, supporters argued that setting a policy formally defending the Second Amendment will reduce violence and prohibit law enforcement from infringing on the right to bear arms. Davis County, now the 5th county in Utah to issue a Second Amendment policy. Other counties calling it a sanctuary policy. Weber, Uinta, Utah, and Wayne counties are the other counties who have adopted similar measures, calling themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. And joining us right now is Sheriff Kelly Sparks, and he is the sheriff of Davis County. And Sheriff Sparks, first of all, let me ask, you wanted us to be clear that this policy wasn't formally calling Davis County a sanctuary. What is the difference?
So, yeah, you're right. This is not a Second Amendment sanctuary resolution. However, it does provide some of the safeguards that I believe those resolutions are intended to promote. This is really a policy that directs sheriff's office personnel in this regard. By creating this as a sheriff's office policy, we really establish something that's not just symbolic, but is actionable and potentially enforceable, because it is a policy that our officers are held to.
Talk about the meaning of that when you say it can potentially, or it can be actionable. Does that mean essentially that this could direct you and your officers to not implement laws that are passed at the state or federal level?
So this policy really gives clear guidance to our law enforcement officers about how to respond to presidential orders, directives, federal policy, things that are not passed by the U.S. Congress or passed by state legislators that potentially could infringe upon Second Amendment rights or other individual constitutional rights. So it gives clear guidance to our officers and really empowers them to be defenders of constitutional rights.
In looking at what this was about and what some of the potentials were out there that might spark, forgive me, I don't mean that to use your name there, but what would spark this conversation? The president has talked about certain policies, including things like banning so-called ghost guns, where you buy a kit and you can assemble a gun, perhaps without going through a background check or having a serial number on the gun. Another policy that might encourage red flag laws, where people can say, hey, this person I know is going through tough ideas, maybe suicidal or violent situation, and can we take his gun for a time? Are those things that you think are out of bounds?
Well, those are all things that I think we are concerned about. This policy is not a response to any particular order or law that we've seen come out recently. Rather, it's part of an ongoing conversation that I think has been happening in our community for a long time. We are, myself, the county attorney, Davis County commissioners, all feel very strongly, and we're unified in the fact that we want to support the Constitution of the United States, and we really want the people of our county to know of our resolve to do that. So this is not in response to any particular federal dictate. It is really an effort to be out in front. And I think that's what our people expect us to do. I think that's what I expect our citizens to do. We want to be out in front of these issues so that everyone understands that we hold the Constitution as the highest law of the land. It's prime, and we stand ready to defend it.
And you mentioned some of your thinking earlier, and the county's thinking, like you mentioned, the county attorney and the county commission on board with this. You mentioned you don't want a presidential directive to simply enforce something, but if it were passed by Congress. Is that the line in your mind, as making sure it goes through a constitutional process if a law is passed? Or is the line specific to, there is going to be a line somewhere. A person can't own their own tank or bazooka or that sort of thing. So how do you think through how this process works and how much a citizen can have in terms of violent force at their demand, at their disposal?
Well, I think that the Constitution is our guide, right? The Constitution lays out these parameters. It lays out how laws are established. It lays out how laws are enforced. And we have this beautiful system of separation of powers and checks and balances. And that's all an important part of this process. So going through the legislative process, going through judicial review, all of those things become important in establishing the constitutionality of any law. And it's when those are subverted or someone takes a shortcut to that process that becomes a problem. Clearly, we need good, solid laws, and we need laws that are narrowly tailored and are effective at helping us reduce violence. You know, we as Sheriff's Office, we work hard every day to prevent violence and to be prepared to respond if violence occurs. And we have the need to use some of the laws that have been on the books for a long time, that have proven to be effective and proven to be constitutional, that really target that criminal element. So part of our thought process here is that we want to make sure that this policy helps us do both of those things: protect the constitutional rights of our citizens to bear arms, and also give us the authority and the power that we need in order to reduce the violence that occurs in our society.
Well, there is a whole lot to the conversation. We're out of time, Sheriff, but I really appreciate you taking some time with some thoughtful answers to questions that deserve that kind of thought. You know, it's something that we all have to deliberate on. And thanks for what you do and what your men do as well. Men and women, pardon me, your deputies do. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.